Good morning, everyone. Okay, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for those in Indonesia. I'm Bagus Takwin, uh, as a co-PI from Resilient Indonesian Slum Envisioned project, together with Dr. Edwin Leong, uh, also as a PI from Radboud University. Okay, I will open the presentation of our team, uh, who will share how we run an interdisciplinary and transnational project, especially how to break barriers that exist between disciplines and also between people from different countries. Our project is called Resilient Indonesian Slums Envisioned, abbreviated as RISE. We focus on the study of social-ecological interaction in slum areas in three different locations in Indonesia: Pontianak, Manado, and Bima. Yeah, I hope you can hear my voice clearly. As you may already know, interdisciplinary studies are the process of answering questions, solving problems, or discussing topics that are too broad or complex to be adequately addressed by one discipline alone, and utilizing the disciplines with the aim of integrating their insight to build a more comprehensive understanding. Next slide. Our interdisciplinary collaboration began with the intention to solve the problems faced like floods, poverty, slums, lack of clean water, and the impact of climate change in cities. They are all interrelated and interact to form a complex problem. The problem needs to be understood comprehensively and requires many perspectives to approach it. The complex phenomenon has many objects, aspects, and interaction in it, and from there we realize that it takes a lot of discipline to understand, explain, and solve the problem. It takes a lot of lenses to understand what is happening and how it has an impact. It has been our guide from the beginning. Later, this will be our reference point when we experience barriers to unite our views and thoughts that are separated by disciplines as well as cultural differences. And the next step, based on our understanding, Edwin de Jong and I and other colleagues formed uh, an interdisciplinary and transnational team. First, we made a concept note that tried to provide a big picture of the problem and what was involved in it roughly. Next, we formulated a kind of outline of the steps that needed to be taken to understand the problem more clearly and in detail. And from there, we identified what disciplines and approaches we needed. Then we contacted people who had the necessary qualification and had an interdisciplinary mindset to work with. We utilized our networks and also tried to create new networks to find researchers who wanted to work with us. Networking is a very important here because we need to find a variety of people with specific interests and experiences according to the research topics in our project, and more specifically, people who are willing to carry out an interdisciplinary project with us. Next slide. After the team was formed, together we made a proposal to be submitted to the NWO Merian Fund. This was a very challenging work. Although the mindset and intention to work together in interdisciplinary manner were already there, formulating the background, question, and framework of research involving people from different disciplinary backgrounds was not easy. Through a series of discussion, joint writing, and other efforts to understand each other, we finally succeeded in making a proposal. And a result, we received a grant from NWO Merian Fund. And the implementation of the research project was even more challenging. Our friends will tell you some of the process after this. So, next, our team members will share their experience. Thank you. I think we will change the slides.
Hello. Okay, perhaps while waiting for the slides, I can introduce myself a little bit. Is that okay? To reduce the time? Yes, you can. Okay. Okay, so hello everyone. I am Prasanti, but people usually call me Asi. I'm an assistant professor here at Bandung Institute of Technology. Hello from Indonesia. And I'm going to be presenting today with Tara. And I see her in a pink, beautiful blazer that I can see from here, who is a fellow at Radboud University. And if we can see the slides here shown up, is it already shown up over there? No. Okay. The slides are not from me. Okay, so you will see once the slides are on that I am from the Faculty of Civil and Environmental Engineering. My basis is as an engineer. And the lovely lady in pink, Tara, is from geography, initially Department of Geography. And just by that, you can already see the big difference between the two of us. Yet we are part of one team who have had the good opportunity to be writing together in one paper. And today, based on this experience, we want to share a little bit about our experience, and also like this was also like a good opportunity for us to to think about reflect about our own joint experience doing something like this together. Okay, so should I try to share the slides?
Yes, no, I can pictures. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will try. Okay. I don't.
You see slides,
Oh, this is not me. No, okay. Thank you. I can see it now. Sorry. Technical problems are always an issue. So yeah. So as I said before, today I will start before, but this is a presentation of the two of us, and you can see on the slide I'm from the Faculty of Civil Engineering, and Tara is from the Department of Geography. So we are from two different worlds and two different ways of thinking, but here we are reflecting on our experience. So before we start, next please. Next, yeah. So basically, we want to share a little bit about the paper that we have been working on for the past maybe 1-2 years. So in this paper, we were talking about the multi-level governance of sanitation in slums, and the aim was to map the existing challenges for sanitation governance in the slum settlements through a comparative analysis of two medium-sized cities in Indonesia. We use stakeholder and social network analysis, and the key arguments that we wanted to say in this paper was to highlight the horizontal and vertical fragmentation of slum sanitation within a multi-level governance landscape. This research also shows that multi-level governance does not inherently lead to better outcomes when responsibilities are unclear and overlapping. And next slide, please. This paper that we were working on, it actually didn't happen just like that. There was quite a long process until we were able to submit it in 2024. So actually, initially we had the idea to share about different methodologies in May 2022, and then in November 2022 we started having online meetings to develop the data collection strategy, and then in December 2022 until March 2023 we had some data collection in the cities that we were looking at, and then in January we did some data analysis, and then we actually also did like the collaborative writing between September and April of this year, and then in June we finally submitted it. But this is also something that we wanted to be transparent about. We actually also received our first rejection this September, so we already experienced the whole range of what can possibly happen within a given collaboration up to the rejection. Maybe next time we will also be accepted. So the bottlenecks that we experienced during this is that firstly, in the beginning, there was some power and positionality problems. There was lack of trust because there's different funding streams within the research projects, especially in the initial phase where this wasn't so clear. There was also problems in intercultural communication. So there was the risk related to cultural misunderstandings, stereotypes, and prejudices. And we also had some limited communication among the researchers, especially in the beginning of the project. Other than that, we also had some ethical concerns where the dilemma was concerning interdisciplinary collaboration, particularly about the theoretical lens in the North or South scholarship. And then now I give it to you, Tara.
Thanks, Tasi. I'll take forward from here. I hope you can hear me clearly. Yeah, great. Okay. So Aarti just presented the paper and also a little bit about the process, and she explained what are the bottlenecks. I take it forward, and what I'll do is I'll discuss with you what worked. Well, the first thing that was really instrumental in making this paper a reality was the identity of lead researchers. Out of the six co-authors, three of us, including Matt, who's here, and Aarti and myself, we all female early career researchers. So we were the scientists who were leading the research process. In terms of work ethics, we had respect and recognition for each other's expertise and knowledge within the interdisciplinary collaboration, which is definitely a key to success of such a project. We also maintain transparency in authorship and the roles and responsibilities of different researchers involved in this collaboration. Finally, there was also a lot of solidarity, not only for the research topic per se, that of course we all were involved as researchers within the RISE consortium, but also for the research process. We all believed in building trust, and we managed to develop friendship along the research process. We all clearly also invested a lot in having fun, and we truly believe that it is the importance of working on interdisciplinary project by seeing the same challenges that we were looking within the domains of our discipline through interdisciplinary lens. So basically from a different perspective. So to conclude this, this process and this presentation, we have 5 key takeaways. First, of course, is that collaborative science requires an open mind and a sincere acknowledgement of our own disciplinary limitations. It's very important to understand what, for example, I, as an urban planner, can achieve within the domains of planning. It's not transactional. It doesn't start with a give and take, where science, we know, is a very competitive piece, but interdisciplinarity requires a lot more. And it also involves a very uncertain process. What it really needs is respect, compassion, and trust, which takes us, for a long way. It's not about simply putting a group of people in a room, actually. It's about people with matching bandwidth. It really requires people who can think along, who are able to think beyond their disciplines. And the last point, I feel collaborative science is a lot like marriage. It's time intensive and involves hard work. So that's from us. Thank you.
Oh, my turn. Can you hear my voice okay? Hello? Okay, awesome. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Well, good afternoon here and good morning there. So I'm Faisal. So we're the part of the pairing of the RISE project. So I'm here, Faisal, also from ITB, Interdisciplinary Bandung, Indonesia. And with me, there's also Anshe from the Open University of the Netherlands. So we would like to share our part. Our work is a collaborative work about quantifying time-dependent flood resilience index in a densely populated urban environment in Manado, Indonesia. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so so this is the map of Manado. So where is actually Manado? You can look it up online if you don't know where it is. So it's a city in the north part or northeastern part of Indonesia, really close to the Pacific Island. Oh, sorry, Pacific Ocean. So this work, so our works is actually, so we're working on creating the flood resilient index that considers not only physical characteristics, but also demographics and temporal vulnerability of floods. So in here, we focus the calculation. So we focus on modeling and of FRI in a vulnerable riverside community in single sub-district Manado in Indonesia. So a little bit story about why we chose this part or this place is the Singkil sub-district marked in orange, if you can see it. So it's a sub-district or kecamatan in Manado where it has a lot of slums colored in purple in the map. So and it's also adjacent to the Tondano River, which is one of the largest river in there. And it has a high risk of flood. So we focus on to see the progression of the flood risk. Can we go to the next slide? Next one. Okay, so how do you define the FRI? So the interesting thing about FRI, which I have to note that we don't make the FRI. Previous studies made the method, but we modify the method here. So FRI is a time-dependent index that shows the severity of an event. So on one side is is an okay, and if you go low, it means a very bad flood. And it's divided into event phase and recovery phase. In event phase, we base our calculation on the physical indicators, like from modeling. Like in this case, we use HEC HMS for the hydrological modeling and HEC RAS for the hydraulic modeling. And then after that, in the recovery phase, we calculate the slowing down of the flood risk index using socioeconomic data. Next slide, please. Now, this is the results of our modeling. So we model it using this 2-year, 20-year, and 100 years return period. You can see that in these 3 maps, even in the 2-year period, the flood is bad already. And you can also see that the flood inundation actually inundates the slum areas. In here, we can show that the slums are at risk of the floods. Next. Now, this is the breakdown of the FRI curves for each of the sub-districts, or the wards. Ward is kelurahan so that's one level under the kecamatan. So we have 9 wards. We can see that in some wards there is practically no difference between the 2-year period and 100-year period, meaning that those wards are at risk even from the smallest probability flood, which is the 2-year probability, 50% every year happen. Some wards which are quite far away from the river. They are at risk, but not as bad as the top left one. Next. Okay, so those are the physical stuff from me, and I will give the session to Anshe for the next slide.
Thank you, Faisal. Again, I think, as always, smooth and nice cooperation here. So great. So this is maybe the highlight of our working together, smooth and great. So yeah, besides that, it was just a really fantastic experience to work together. And I think we really came to some important conclusion in this fantastic new flood resilience index, which is very important. Yeah, so we used this modeling and socioeconomic data to measure this urban flood resilience. So as Faisal just said, this highlights the differences between the different areas, so the wards within the single sub-districts. So we could really see that there were differences between the different wards close to the river. So for example, we had this Wawanasa and Karame that shows greater vulnerability and also slower recovery after flooding. So these are really very important outcomes that can really also support policy and urban planning. So I think for these are really important topics. So yeah, with this research, I think we really provide a wonderful input for framework for flood mitigation. So that's what we are aiming at for flood mitigation strategies. And it can also really aid urban planning for disaster management. So I think this is a very important outcome. Next slide, please. Yes. So of course, as always, there are always some limitations to a study. And for this, yeah, it was quite difficult, but I think still within the limits of being acceptable, but that we had to, of course, find some good data, cari data. Yeah, so I'm in Indonesia now, so I have to. I'm campuring. I'm mixing up my language here, so I have to be careful. So yeah, I think we did very good enough to run the models, which is of course is very important. yeah, so also for the climate change integration, so we really need to look and focus also on what is actually happening also in the years to come. So if you want to use the index as we just showed, it is important to also, for in the future, if we're going to use this also in other areas, that we need this climate change integration, that it should be really, yeah, maybe adjusted now and then when needed. So I think this is an important topic also. And another thing I think, so that's also really great about this working together within our RISE project, that we needed to collect all kinds of data on slum variations, for example, population density or infrastructure quality, things like this, or some other services. I think, yeah, most of it we could find ourselves, but yeah, within the project, of course, we can also look within the greater RISE project for other people that already did something, or maybe we sometimes, I think by now, we are producing so many papers all together, and also really try to translate the papers into important work for our advocacy work that we also do. That is also really nice that we really can learn from each other and get data from other parts of the research. So that is also fantastic that we are in this super great project with all these fantastic colleagues. So, okay, next slide, please. Yes. So this is the wonderful building at ITB, right? This is ITB, right? So we were in three.
That one is in UPI.
Oh, OP, sorry. So yeah,
Yes,
so
the first stage.
I was the only one. So yeah, sorry. So this is OP, but we were also in ITB at the time, and at the other university in Bandung. So we really want to go everywhere with the team, and I think that yeah, here shows. I think we really became a really big and good research team all together, and all the discussions were super fruitful and also important to come where we are now. So. I think one thing that drives us all is that we really want to have impact for the areas where we work. So yeah, I think that this really came out of this project, that we really are looking at how can we really help the urban planning or the policies to guide these kind of policies, and also how can we really make sure that the areas that we work in can adapt to the climate changes that are coming in the years to come, but yeah, are getting maybe even worse in the bit further future. So also another thing that we are also, I think this is important input for also other parts of the project, that once you know what areas are going to be flooded, that you can also, you know, make sure that the community is sort of as ready as possible and resilient against flooding. So that's also what we are trying to look at, and these data can really underpin these kind of research areas also. So I think this also really supports our overall RISE project. Moreover, since we're all, a lot of us are from academia, we really also want to share all our insights and outcomes and method that we used and developed into e-learning modules, which are in progress. So that's also fantastic, I think, and we hope we can really also help, yeah, curricula to develop in a nice way, and including these important topics. So yeah, and especially I think this flood resilience index is a really important tool that actually could be used worldwide on other flood-prone areas. Next slide, please. And the last slide. So yeah, so this is just a nice statement that also some others later on will do, I think. So I think this working together with this big team that we had here. So let's say the mini team from the big team. So still a big team of 5 persons. So Firman and Nabila are the co-authors of this paper. So also together with Arno, and yeah, they are super strong in modeling. So this is what Faisal said. Firman and Nabila have strong skills in modeling, while Arno and I have general knowledge in Indonesian floods. Working with Antje and co really improve our level, including the leverage what we are capable of, and to be able to present it to the scientific community. So there is also vice versa. So I said, so my quote is that I find working with Faisal and the other co-authors extremely inspiring. And it really, so I have been have a natural science background, have been working with models before, but they challenged me big time, which was super good. So I think I also sometimes will ask really stupid questions, and they could give smart answers, and where needed, improve the things a little bit still. Yeah, and as said, I think this flood resilience index is really something that could be spread out into the our RISE project. You're very useful, I think, for other projects, co-projects too, and also I think for the world. I hope that's what we aim at. So yeah, I think Faisal and me also really would like to thank especially Firman, Nabila, and also Arno for the fantastic cooperation. Yeah, itu aja ya. This is it. Okay.
Yeah, so now Terry and I are also going to present our experience with collaborating. Terry, do you want me to start introducing it? Oh, I can't hear you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, so yeah, Terry and I are both postdocs in the RISE project, based here at Radboud. Terry is has a background in sociology and a more environmental psychology kind of perspective on things. Correct me if I'm saying that wrong, Terry. I have a social science background in international environmental studies, and I'm now based in the Department of Anthropology and Development Studies. So, next slide. Yeah, we're going to try to alternate back and forth between both of us talking, so we'll see if that works. Terry, you can go ahead.
We don't hear you, Terry.
Oh, Terry, we still don't hear you. Try again.
He's blocked his mic. Do it. No. Try it. Again.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me clearly now? Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Perfect now.
Okay, right. Okay. So yeah, just like what Mac has said earlier, we started to develop the mixed method study using the data that we have collected. Uh, just a quick overview of what we did in the study. I basically wanted to know more on the interaction between flock and humans, which is a an intricate one, involving not only the physical infrastructure that people uh, usually or often talk about, but also it's a matter of people's perceptions and their well-being. We will go back to why well-being and also the other side of it, resilience, are relevant in the topic. Um, Again, by combining the anthropological and psychological perspectives, we hope to answer how people perceive flood risk and its relation to their livelihood in detail, while also providing a more general framework. So we attempted to dive in more detail on how people truly feel and perceive their presence in the neighborhood, along with its own risk. But also, we want to go in a more deductive, inductive reasoning back and forth to a more general framework of how this intricate relation varies depending on the flood intensity. Next slide, please. So yeah, I think
I can pass it to Mike for the research design.
So we did this over a long period of time, starting with an exploratory qualitative study that helped to identify some topics and relationships that could be of interest to explore in a large quantitative survey. So I spent time in Pontianak in June and July 2022 and did some qualitative household interviews with people who lived in areas influenced by flooding. And from that, and in discussion with other researchers in the RISE project, we moved to the development of the large survey that they did in Bima, Manado, and Pontianak. Terry will tell you more about that in a moment. And then based on the findings of the survey, we then went back and I did some more qualitative fieldwork in Manado with the intention of trying to provide some kind of descriptive insights into the relationships that we found in the survey and maybe help us to understand a little bit more of the mechanisms behind what they were finding. So we have 3 stages that are included in this paper that we're working on, the exploratory survey, and then a more kind of wrapping up like why we found all of these different things and trying to understand why they happen in a way and to illustrate them a little bit with examples from the qualitative research. Next slide. So as I said before, we started the qualitative research in Pontianak. Bima was there also doing qualitative research at the same time, and so was Tara. So we were lucky enough to be able to discuss with each other throughout that process as well. And then when I returned to the Netherlands, also all of us returned to the Netherlands, and Terry was here working on developing the survey together with also a very large team of people who worked together on the quantitative survey. We were able to point out some things that the participants had identified as important, asked to add some questions to the survey, and just generally we thought it would be interesting to spend some time on adding questions to the survey about how much flooding people had experienced in the past, so whether it was no flooding at all, shallow, frequent flooding, like below the level of the knee, or more extreme kind of flood experiences, and whether this related to the relationships that we were interested in having to do with resilience and well-being in this slide.
Okay, now after the qualitative study that was conducted by Mac and also along with Tara in the first phase, we developed a survey, a book of questionnaire based on what we have collected through interview data and also with the literature review that we also performed. In the end, we started collecting data from February through April 2023. We successfully gathered 800 participants. There's actually more. We also included Bima, but for now, in this study, we focus on Manado and Pontianak due to more detail of the data that we successfully collected. For this large-scale survey we we gathered samples through multi-stage sampling method. So basically, very quick, we started purposefully, decided on which locations we would go to, and then same like Faisal, ward or kelurahan or sub-district level, we also still selected purposefully, and then at the household level, also at the individual level, we conducted random sampling method. Among other things, the study focused on risk perception dimensions such as or there are worry, awareness, and preparedness, household resilience, relational well-being, and demographic variables. These other things include place attachment, a sense of belongingness of the locals, also social identity, and many, many more. So these participants are divided into 3 groups in this study. We, based on the questions that we collected on whether they have experienced flood and to what extent. Uh, we divided into three groups. No flood experience, that means they really have had no experience at all. Adults near experience, and finally the adults waste experience. So when there are participants who claim to have had above adults near experience, then they would be classified into the third group. So this is the diagram below is the quick overview of, let's say, the theoretical framework figure that we um, uh, developed to also develop the hypothesis. So basically, risk perceptions that consist of worry, global warming awareness, and flood preparedness would uh, affect household resilience. And through household resilience, these three dimensions of risk perception would affect relational well-being. And of course, the covariates, the other variables that also would play part in affecting their relational well-being are the demographic conditions that the locals have. And next.
So I think I already said something about this, but then after the survey, we went through some of the results together, and Terry and some other members of the team presented those together at our annual meeting in Indonesia last year. And from that, Terry and I discussed again. And then when I went back to do more data collection in Manado, I took with me some of the findings of the survey and tried to explore those more in a qualitative slide. Next, yeah, okay. So basically, we didn't want to spend this whole presentation just talking about the findings or the paper so much. It's just talking about what it was like working together, because Terry has a very strong quantitative background and I am very much a qualitative person. We have some small overlap in the kinds of work that we've done in the past, but it's a little bit foreign for me to be working with like an established hypothesis in advance of doing the study, for instance. A lot of the ways of thinking about causality and relationships and all of these things are not really what I'm used to. So I had a lot of questions for him. I feel like I learned quite a lot also from the process of just trying to understand, okay, but like, what does it mean that X mediates Y leads to Z, and how all these things fit together? And, so I think that for me, this was just a huge learning experience. And I think it was also really satisfying when Terry would explain to me what he had been finding in the data and what he thought was going on. And I would say, oh, somebody told me this. And then we would come and we would discuss, okay, but there's a contradiction in what people are saying in the interviews, or it's confirming it, and why do we think that is, and how can we, continue to build on that as we think about the discussion and what does the literature say, and then also we were drawing from different kinds of literatures, because I read more anthropology and geography, and then Terry is reading environmental psychology. So there was a lot of us challenging each other, and then having these really long discussions and drawing on the whiteboard, and working independently for a few days and coming back and having new questions. And I think that led to us having a much nicer paper than we would have if I had written up my results in one place and he had written them up somewhere else, because there was like very productive tension going on throughout the process. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Terry, or
I think it still is the collaborative process. I think it working on this paper with Mike, it feels like I'm taking a whole semester of data analysis or qualitative method, but of course that in a positive way, of course, because I really like how Mac actually sliced. If you still remember the diagram that I showed you in the earlier slides, she really encouraged me to, yeah, we both in the end work together to really slice things down, and making sure that it isn't just okay based on the literature review. It isn't just based on the results. Okay, this is how the results show, and looking at this is as it sums of its parts, but it's really but why does it affect something else, and how does it resonate with the locals? That means how does it resonate with the data? So I think that really is a great and pleasant experience. So yeah, this is a real collaborative process for me. Um, it's pleasant experience. Next. Okay. Mike, anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, so there were some challenges, obviously, and there still are. Yeah, we say on the last slide that we submitted the paper. We were a little optimistic last week when we put this presentation together. It's not quite finished, but it took us a long time to find a journal that we felt like was a good home for something like this, because it is really somewhere in between. There's a lot of differences in how we would also format this kind of journal, like what we think the structure should be, and how long the method section, and what goes in the theoretical framework, and what goes in the measures and concepts, and this kind of thing. So I'm not sure. I hopefully we found a good middle ground in the next months. Yeah, we mentioned before that it's of course we have different ways of thinking about relationships and world that have been interesting to try to overcome. I think we found a nice common ground, and a common language also, where we can.
Okay. So we finally reached at the last slide, I believe. So, what are the contributions of the study? I believe there are many contributions, but just to name a few, I think we, by combining different depths of flooding in past experience with risk perception, well-being, and resilience at the same time, we highlight the importance of resilience, well-being, energy. So, we found in our results that one of the risk perception dimensions actually uh, negatively affects the household resilience. Uh, One of the dimensions of risk perception actually, if we look at the direct relation between um, uh, awareness and well-being, it is negative. That means the more you are aware, the less you feel about your relation of your well-being. But then if you throw in household resilience in the formula, then it gets more interesting, where household resilience buffers the effect of the negative effect of the uh, uh, awareness, uh, which means goes back to the whole idea of this study. We often look at how physical infrastructures could help the people's livelihoods, but at the same time, of course, that makes sense in the short term, but in the long term, we should also look at the impact on well-being, because for instance you could actually relocate people to a new place that being said it of course gives more comfort to the people, but at the same time that might also affect people's well-being in the long term. So the trade-off between resilience and well-being is also highlighted in this study. uh, it isn't just about resilience in the short term, but also well-being in the long term. So again, this can only be concluded by using this anthropological and psychological and sociological perspectives uh, to understand the relations in ways that both quantify them and also explain them and hopefully predict them. Mike, you might want to add something else?
No, I think that's it. We are hoping to publish this paper soon, so if you're interested, look it up. Yeah. I think the next one will be my presentation with Kacha. Can we have the presentation probably on the screen? And I hope it's all right if I present by standing up, because I
like it better that way. I'm a very movement talker, so. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vika. I'm a PhD student, and together with one of my supervisors at time, today we're going to present to you the process of our research. We're going to do it in two parts. So the first part is going to be mine. It's going to be focusing more on my PhD journey. And then the next one, Hachan will present to you more on the broader scope of the why and how of our project, the RISE project. Next. So a little background to the project. So climate change happens, we all know it. Some areas are getting wetter, some areas are getting drier. And when it's getting wetter, coupled with the context of urban area where landscape changes happens throughout the decades, then it increases the frequency and the intensity of flood. And this exposes the vulnerable people in the area, such as those in urban slums, to a significant risk. And although many solutions have been provided, many fails to address the social and ecological concerns equitably. And why is that? Next. So, regretfully, I was part of the problem. I had an engineering background. I am sanitary engineering, and us engineers are very technical-centered people. We like solutions that are clear and measurable. And revolving around this technical solution alone can be problematic. So, for example, it can create more problems in social context, for example, where we normalize eviction or practice of forced displacement, and or environmental concern or environmental problems where we thought we know the best solution were altering the environment. Meanwhile, we're actually just removing the problem elsewhere. And in research, it means that now that I'm a PhD under social science, I need to approach things differently. And to do this, I need to get new perspective and learn new things, learn new theories, social science theories. And I struggle to do it. Next. So I am nearing the end of my second year. And 1.5 years of my PhD was really just me trying to gain understanding, a new perspective of how social scientists think without losing my footing as an engineer. And no matter what I read, no matter how much I read, nothing gets through, really. I don't understand anything what the social scientists meant. And then I realized there's this mental block within me, and it means that I need to unlearn things that I have always known. For example, me as an engineer just needs to focus on the materiality of the water or quality, the quantity of the water, but that's not how it is in real life. So I learned during my journey that water in all its form, water supply, sanitation, flood risk management can be political, especially when it's within the context of underrepresented, marginalized communities such as those in urban slums. And learning this perspective kind of shocked my core, and then afterwards I can try to understand what these social science theories try to ask. I can finally understand the papers my other supervisor from social scientists, Edwin, sent me 2 years ago on my first year of PhD. It took me 2 years just to understand what the paper was about and how I use it in my studies. So what then I learned from those papers, next, how to test better that I already now understand rather than explaining to you, right? So in my thesis, in my PhD, there are two main concepts, the resilience concept and the social-ecological interaction concept. Now, if I say resilience, I believe there are already certain definitions that pops in your mind, what resilience is. But what we have to agree is that resilience is a dynamic and transformative process involving all the systems that are affected. And all these systems, when we're talking about resilience, they are intertwined. For example, water, not only that it has materiality, it also has other dimensions. For example, the cultural dimensions or how it shapes culture and political dimensions for the distribution of the water. Now, then, understanding this other dimensions, we then have to acknowledge that there's a co-evolution process between the social system and the ecological system. And it means that there are influences, there are exchanges, and there are relationships between the systems. And this exchanges, this influences, this relationship is what we call as interaction. That's the socio-ecological interaction. Next, how I'm going to use it in my research is that, so I try to understand the socio-ecological interaction within the study area. Our project has 3 study locations, Pontianak, Bima, Manado, but my PhD mainly focuses on Pontianak and Bima. And through understanding the socio-ecological interaction within these areas, we wanted to try to improve the resilience in the context of flooding, water, and sanitation. So my first paper is focusing mainly on the flood risk management because that's what represents the flood resilience. And then the next one will be about water sanitation, and my concluding paper will be about how we arrange this information to formulate strategies and hopefully can try to inform policymakers better or make the thinking framework better for policymakers. I think that will be all from my PhD journey. Giving stage over to Tanya.
Thank you, Lika. Yeah, okay, one back. Yeah, thank you. Oops. Yeah, one further then.
Next.
Next slide. Yeah.
No, that's one thing. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So me, I'm a little bit a hybrid between applied science. I work at Deltares. We advise all kinds of municipalities on water management, and I'm also in science. So a big effort in the RISE project is also to not to think and work between our scientists and learn of the different perspectives that we have learned in the RISE project, but also try to make an impact. Think of the theory of change, and also how to bring our knowledge into the real world and show the different perspectives in a way that they can apply and trigger action. Being at Deltares, I really recognize we got statement engineers. So a lot of my colleagues are engineers. They like to compute things and give a lot of figures. But when I started working in water quality, linking also to health and well-being, I noticed this. There are so many actors that we need to bring together. So they have so different perspectives. So we need a better story. We need to express our findings in ways that they understand, that trigger things in their mind or in their domain to action. So here we have the strategy of co-management, understand cause and effect complexity. This is what Vika is also doing. Quantify the non-tangible burden, so make that insightful. And the challenge is that there's no collaborative analysis framework. Stakeholders are fragmented, especially among these different domains. Definitions, let's say health community, governance, and for the health stakeholders, I noticed in the last years that they are often more focused on relief efforts and not in what we at Deltares propose long-term flood management planning. So this is a different perspective. So next slide, please. So next. Okay. Thank you. Oops, one back. So this is more or less, let's say, the traditional management cycle. Of course, you need a framework like this to be able to get a whole group of different people to work together in some organized manner. Let's put it like this. And this is often practiced in the flood management community, where stage 1, mitigation, is more or less the planning phase for flood management planning. Then afterwards you can move to preparedness, then a flood happens, and then you have the recovery phases where different actors are playing a role. And next slide, please. And what we like to achieve in the RISE project is that we are moving away from monodisciplinary approaches. Regretfully, I often see in the different countries that the dominant discourse in solution space is often taken up a lot by the engineers. And I see that in different countries. And we try to bring together the different perspectives, what we learned in the RISE project, into some kind of generic roadmap, which is similar like a strategy. Where do you go from awareness, talking to local communities, towards the end when you go towards the solution space. And from that, connected to that, we will also highlight the tools that we invented during the RISE research that are often the fruit of the combination of different disciplines that can help in the different steps in this roadmap. Next slide, please. It's the last one. So we have a roadmap under development. There's a roadmap practically geared towards different case studies, towards the cities. And once those are finished, we'd like to take a step back and think about, okay, how can we generalize this roadmap into something that's applicable to more contexts, maybe also outside of Indonesia, that spikes the interest of stakeholders like the World Bank, who can maybe use that thinking into their terms of reference for new projects so that we have more impact with our thoughts. Next slide. Let's read the last one. And of course, in this roadmap, you have different phases, and then you also need different tools, like, for example, the index that was highlighted by Faisal, also the e-learning highlighted by Anshe, the insights from the questionnaires and the way you can analyze and understand and use local knowledge in a systematic way to inform the whole roadmap. These things we'd like to bring together so you have the strategy and the tools aligned up to be able to cater to the different perspectives that we face in the real world, and that together have to, let's say, organize themselves into actions for their communities. This is my.
Okay, thank you. I'm moderating this session together with Papa Boes, who started this session, explaining a bit about the RISE project. At least that he was already stating that we are achieving a socio-ecological resilience kind of approach towards slums in different cities, 3 different cities. Facing water-related issues, you could say, challenges. So you can already imagine in 3 different cities, at the moment we had about 40 different people from different kind of disciplines, 4 universities in Indonesia, 2 universities in the Netherlands, different kind of faculties, and also including some NGOs focusing on 3 different cities. So this is quite a challenge, how to bring all these diverse interests, different backgrounds, different experiences with different methods. We already saw across a mixed kind of methods, but also disciplines. So we had a hydrologist, ecologist, biologist, psychologist, anthropologist. So quite a variety of people together who you could put in one room. You already mentioned it. That doesn't work, but we put everybody in one boat. That worked for the first time. So it's quite a challenge in the beginning to bring all these different kind of interests together. It's all about communication, and it's also about transparency and trust issues. We had a discussion 2 days ago with the MWO project meeting, how to develop these kind of things, and basically it's all about trust. And trust is not something that you can build in one day, but it really needs time. So we're now in the 3rd year. And you can see now that after the second meeting, things started to turn out, and especially face-to-face meetings were quite crucial. We started during the COVID meeting. We didn't really work out well in the beginning, these kind of face-to-face meetings, until we met together. And we literally stepped up on the boat at a certain time where there was no way to escape, and we had food and drinks together. and some laugh, and there the real exchanges started to come about. So that in the beginning it was not only about different disciplines, different kind of lenses for looking to specific issues, like for water and flood and slums. We have a lot of discussion, sometimes taking a day or more, about what is the concept of flood. For example, we saw one team was investigating in surveys the perspectives that people had in flood. People were saying there is no flood here. While we had other people, anthropologists in the area, standing with until their knees within the flood in the water. So we were really discussing, okay, what is about flood, and then it appeared later on that flood is conceptualized completely different by locals because the term flood was a governmental concept used for a kind of height of 1.5 meters or more, at least for 1 week or 2 weeks in the same area, while there were continuously flooding for 1 day, sometimes less. So we have all these kind of discussions also about slums. Could we use the term slum? It's a really Western kind of concept, and it pays. I mean, in our project, that is why we use the concept of slum, but it doesn't match the local connotation of what their kampong is about, and their community, local community is about. And we saw that slums, the term slum or kampong is sometimes used in a way to attract money from the government, but also connotates all kind of negative connotations with local communities. So we had a lot of discussions, and also about resilience. Resilience is a very Western concept, especially discussions between different disciplines, but also related to local kind of perceptions on these kind of concepts. That took us quite some time to align all these different interests, I would say. And next to that, we also had the interest and different kind of perceptions on how we could move forward in terms of our own disciplines. So sometimes we even saw that people were protecting their own data against others, or having a perspective on a specific data for how to use it, and that led to quite some friction, especially in the beginning, until everybody started to realize that 1 + 1 is 3. And I thought that really started to flip our learning experience. People started to realize that, like also with the mixed methods kind of example, that by using different kind of perspective, different kind of methods, we really have different kind of aspects that we are bringing forward. And the multiple lenses that provided a more holistic output, that prevented also for particular blind spots that we had in the beginning. Something from different disciplines. I think you also mentioned that the blueprints that are often used for looking to water. Our project is building on the World Bank research conducted specifically on flooding. And they found out that you cannot say much about flooding if you do not take into account local perspectives or societal perspective, communities, as well as water quality change. So we brought already these 3 kind of things together, leading to a more holistic or necessary or holistic outlook for looking to these perspectives. We also work quite closely together, and like you mentioned, I think in respect and recognition of the other disciplines, that's the starting point for each other's knowledge within this kind of interdisciplinary cross-country collaboration. So here are the other pictures also with Guangdong University that you just mentioned. Can you go 1 slide further, Truce? So what were our challenges? Most of it was already touched upon, but I think especially the building bridges between the theoretical lenses that are used within each discipline, but also between quantitative and qualitative ways of thinking about specific data. So the iterative, the deductive, inductive kind of approaches to research, that was really quite an issue, and also including these kind of priorities in the writing process. And also the common language, I would say. We all use different kind of concepts. I don't know whether you're familiar with the term eco-application. That means that you use the same concepts by using different kind of things, and that happened quite a lot, and it took quite some time to to move forward with. And the ethical dilemmas we faced in having different kind of positions, also in a hierarchical way, but also different kind of positions in kind of disciplinary way. And that took us quite some time to move forward. Next slide, last slide. So that leads us maybe to some questions if there is still some time, because I think we run out of time a bit. How do we arrive at a kind of hybrid theoretical lens that encompasses both North and South scholarship kind of theories? Because most of the concepts we use are developed in the West, like resilience and slums, and even water. The ideas on water, notions of water, is quite westernized. And how do we build such a common transdisciplinary and cross-country theoretical framework? That was quite something that we were facing, and still is challenging. And how to prevent these kind of cultural miscommunication, stereotypes, and prejudices you mentioned in the beginning. And maybe how do we build a research design that's kind of symphony of methods in terms of sequence and parallel data collection, but also different kind of position techniques, like quantitative versus qualitative, but also modeling versus very ethnographic kind of research. How do we bring these together? And also in terms of analysis, and then also in terms of writings, and finally in terms of publishing. So these were quite some questions that we faced, and that we have some time, I think not so much, that we want to open the floor and give you some space to bring maybe some common experiences or some knowledge on what you want to share with us in bringing this forward. So it's an open discussion. But maybe before we start the discussion, we might have some ordinary questions or more complex kind of questions or remarks about the project in general.
Why Pontianak?
Yeah, it was we were focusing on small, medium scale kind of cities, with the idea that there are different kind of water challenges, but also different kind of societal, economic kind of development stages in three different cities, and also in terms of size. So like Bima is much smaller than Manado, and Pontianak is a bit bigger again. They have different stages of development, and they also face different kind of water problems in terms of the rising sea level, but also inundation. And we also saw that there's a differentiation in the cycle of rainfall, and also the river floating is completely different, and also the flooding. For example, in Pontianak, it's far more stable, while Manado is far more heavy kind of flooding, sometimes reaching 2.5 meters or more. And Bima, it's more about water pollution problems, different kind of water pollution problems. And it was identified first by the World Bank. They have more cities, also Padang and some others. Just
to add to that, from the discipline of urban planning and urban studies, I think there's a big incentive to look beyond Java.
Yeah.
So I don't,
But then what I see, it's because it's, some of these places, they are orang adat, orang transmigrasi. So this is something that you put into consideration.
Yeah.
Because you're speaking about well-being, and there's a lot different between whether you are native from that city and then whether you're coming from Java.
Yeah,
that's
true. Yeah, diversity is quite a big thing in our concept of well-being. So we look, for example, to broader perspective of well-being than which is more common. So we also include like relational aspects of well-being, in the sense that if you, for example, in Indonesia, ask a person whether he's doing well or not, he or she is often planning to say, I'm doing well when my family is doing well. So it's very difficult to understand somebody's well-being without looking to the embeddedness in specific relations, but also embeddedness in terms of governance, in terms of societal inclusion. So it comprises the completely different lens than which is more coming in the West.
Yeah, you talk about transboundary, transdisciplinary, but by calling it a flood risk project, are you already not limiting your solution space? Because if you're a flood risk, then you want to reduce flood risk. That's not the point, right? You want to increase well-being, and you can live with flood, you can adapt to flood, but because I've also in the previous presentations, language is very important. First one started with battling water. Mm-hmm. That's already framing your mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sympathize with your struggle as an engineer. I'm an engineer as well, and I see that the engineering is not the solution. The hard engineering, it's a different space. You have to.
This mentioned in one paper, but in fact we found more that it's not specifically about risk, and sometimes even about decentralization, in the sense that something like that. It's some people are not even, and that's also in relation to time, for example. If you look to resilience, it's very much based on a time frame. And so in the future kind of a perspective. Well, different people in different kind of areas have a completely different notion of time. And sometimes, and it doesn't mean they do not care. You can in a completely different way than we see it in this kind of circle way of thinking.
Yeah, that's a very
I would add also, probably since I mentioned a bit about how resilience was represented a bit by the flood risk management framework, and I think you get the flood risk through that, but it really doesn't mean that I'm, because it's only my project, the flood risk is not really talking about the flood risk alone, but merely taking the framework as a starting point, because the framework has the preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So we're using that as a departure point and see if it is really reflected in the community, and see if this is reflected. Then they actually have already a knowledge, a local knowledge towards that. But sometimes when we see it with an established framework, with the policy or tools that we already know as a stakeholder, for example, or academia or practices, then we don't see these informal practices as this part of the framework. So we try to also advocate that it's not an awareness problem, it's a behavior problem. It could be that there's already local knowledge, but we just don't acknowledge it or we don't see it as well.
Yeah, but do you find this framework helpful or not helpful? Because it's very linear, this first, then that, then that, then that.
Yeah,
is that helpful?
We're not, yes, in a way that, because we want to be able to define flood resilience, and unfortunately in papers, usually when we talk about resilience, there's graph only, or like models. So I try to make a point where it's larger, so it's helpful because it can, it's a whole process of the flood management, but it is better known as flood risk management. So it can be, the name can be changed, but it's just, we're better known as the flood risk management.
Yeah, but dismissing that, it's just a name.
Yeah.
I think that is too easy, because when you talk about flood management, it already means we want to manage water. And we don't manage water. Water goes where it wants to go.
Adding to Vika's work, because that's what you're doing, is using the interviews and the long interviews from the whole team, actually, to make let's say a network of issues that are connected.
Yeah.
And we have
graph, and everything, and if you because this one and this one goes down, or how much, and then
a little bit like that. But just stating that if you, since we are building the network, we can see where it kind of ends because it's extended. And that's actually the point you make. So we started from a flood risk, but also health, well-being. But you can see if you analyze the interviews, so the local knowledge, and you try to make that into this causal loop diagram, and you see it expanding and it's becoming more complex. And where does it end? You know, this is
anywhere.
So just making the point that we're looking at a broader perspective than only.
Because sure, all presentations talk about raising awareness. Still typical engineering approach. So you want to raise awareness about flooding worldwide. How do you think to do that? What you learned now is that
even flooding is defined in a different way, in a different context by different people. So how do you want to upscale it? You can only upscale it by being aware of this. But you didn't. You already developed a model starting with awareness, which is classical. Always I go to scientists, awareness.
Yeah. But look, the thing I showed is just.
But it's in here, right? It's still in your mind.
Okay.
Still, what you still as engineer, and that's also my second point.
That's why we need the discussion.
No, I don't. Also, now transdisciplinary cooperation always remain in your discipline. I've worked a lot transdisciplinary.
Do you have any solution to get people out of that?
No, you have to leave them in, but build trust. And let them tell them their own stories and then find connections. But don't make it into a new form of science. That's what you know.
Oh, that's
I think this is a good point. This is the kind of conversation we are constantly having within the project, because someone says, what about awareness? And then I say, okay, but people are aware, they live there, they know more than we do. So then we get in this big thing back and forth, like it's raising awareness. I mean, I think it can be very problematic to raise awareness. And then Terry has the point that awareness is not necessarily connected to well-being, right? And people have reasons for saying, yes, there's more risk, no, there's less risk. But, you know, so Pontianak, for example, there are people who've lived on the riverfront since the founding of Pontianak in 1770. And yeah, they're aware, right? They know. So we can raise awareness till the cows come home. And what does that mean?
It's actually moving into advocacy.
Yeah, so it's how to, and maybe they have a very good reason to say there's no flooding here, because they're concerned that if they say, yeah, of course we're the most vulnerable, they get evicted, but they've been there for 100 years. So, and this is a very different case from maybe even other parts of Pontianak where people have moved in because of conflict or economic opportunities or something. And, you know, in North Sulawesi, you have people moving from Gorontalo to Manado for various economic reasons or whatever. And they have a very different awareness. But I guess we have these conversations a lot. The words we use matter. We had a whole 3-hour discussion this year with the whole project about what should we call a slum, right? Like, and it's a government category that we used to identify some areas to work in, but maybe we think it's a problem. But, you know, and so I think these are all very important critiques, and the purpose of the presentation was, I think we're encapsulating it very well right now, that everyone is raising their hand and saying, but why this, and how does this fit? And you know, that's really productive, right?
One remark, I think they get a sign that we need to. No, we're talking very short. Yeah. Other people. Yeah, otherwise we can discuss.
One minute and then we will.
Yeah, very slowly.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm not a scientist, but I had to work. I worked 45 years for decision makers. Secretary General of the UN, ministers in the Netherlands, ministries in Indonesia, mayors, and they don't want to see all those figures. They want to know is it a problem, is it not, what it's going to cost. And then you see, and that's what you mentioned, water is politics. When you talk about awareness, of course, people in the company need to be aware, but they are in their own way. What is the relation with politicians? In Jakarta, you have they run a council with, I believe, 400 people, and I've never seen or heard one talking about the flood and sanitation problems. So you have to address that group of people, and then starts with sort of vision. What do we want to realize? Not a dam or a dike. We want development, economy, and that sort of things. And secondly, do it as simple as possible. You know that you, when you drop oil in the water, you do something that doesn't work. Prevention is the first thing you have to work. And so you have. Let's move to another point very quickly. It's culture. I worked 25 years now together with Indonesian government, Indonesian people. And each time still I have to realize I'm now telling something that is typically Dutch. They want all kinds of studies, they want all kinds of environmental assessments, they want, of course, inclusive approaches, they want youth, they want everything. But please make it simple for the decision makers. And realize when you come from Paris or like me from Dutch government, that it's their culture. And when you're in Java, they have their own way to solve problems or not to solve them for a time. And yeah, you have to find a relation with them. And I would like to see more studies on that relation of culture and on politics.
I will briefly respond to that because we have a complicated concept from the beginning with local officials, with local communities, and we have people studying especially government, and also we have NGOs involved aligning the ideas with the government, especially. So I have to.
I know, and I respect all the actions, and I don't want to criticize.
No, I know what you say.
But it is so complicated.
Yeah.
And I try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And use simple wording. I heard words today that I had to look up.
Yeah.
What it meant.
So that's our problem.
We have found this, we find it very precise.
The concept of resilience is a very fresh concept. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I have to wrap it up. Thank you for the organizers for facilitating this technical and digital device in a very professional way. I also like to thank all the presenters for this session and my co-PI in Indonesia and the other people in Indonesia for being online. We have, thanks to the international office, we have a lunch meeting for people physically afterwards. From now on in the Erasmus building, so you can join us if you want to have further discussion, maybe some discussion after this presentation or the other presentation. Thank you for being live here or being virtually present, and maybe see you on other location for other discussions. Goodbye.